Hey friends, this is Sketch Dirt and I'm Marla. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are drawing letters E, F, G, and H. Alright, so to get started, I am using pencils HB, 2B, and 4B. And for the measurements of my letters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in the description box. I didn't think that it would be I think it would be clearer if it's just written out, so I'm going to leave that in the description box below for you, as well as all the information about art supplies and everything. So to get started, I'm using my HB pencil, and I'm just very roughly sketching out all the letters. I'm not really too concerned about being really accurate. I just want to get them on the page, and I want to get them roughly looking the way I want. And so I'm not being too nervous or too rigid about what the letters look like. I'm just roughly sketching it in, because what I'm going to do next is go through and erase the parts that I'm not thrilled with, and I'm going to keep the parts I like, and I'm going to go in with a darker pencil. So for the next part of the faceted part of the letters, I've made the outer larger point, and then for the faceted part I'm just sketching in one line. It's basically just drawing the letters or writing them as you normally would. And I'm going through here, and like I said before, I'm just erasing all the parts that the guidelines that I had put in, and just any rough sketchy areas that I don't want to keep for my final drawing, and I'm just erasing those out. And as you can see, there's actually not much left in terms of the actual letters. There's just a very slight impression, because what I'm going to do next here is pick up my 2B pencil and start putting in those definite lines and finishing out the faceted portion of this. I would say these letters, it's tough to know what to call them. It's either faceted letters, 3D letters, chiseled letters. You could even, I think, call them graffiti letters, depending on what your project is. But for this, I'll just refer to them as faceted or chiseled. But I'm getting in all the areas with just a darker stroke. I haven't started shading yet. I just want to make sure that the initial drawing looks very even, and the thickness and the thin areas and the faceted edges look very uniform across all of the letters. And for this whole series, I've kind of broken up each video into 3 or 4 letters. I've already done A, B, C, and D. I'll also have that in the description below. But it's just easier to kind of see what you need to do when the letters are broken out in smaller chunks, as opposed to doing them all at once, or even doing them one at a time, because by doing them in groups of 3 or 4, you can see the similarities, and that just helps you draw them all. Once you start seeing that E and F look alike and H looks pretty similar, then it helps you know what to do with G, which is very different from all of them. So I'm still using my 2B pencil, and I'm going in and I'm making the shading. And this is the part that's a little tough to determine how to do. But the main thing is to decide how intricate you want the shading to be, and where you want the light source to be. And so for my drawing, I don't want the shading to be super intricate. I want to use basically 3 tones, which is basically a light, a medium, and a dark. And I also want the light source to be coming in from the right. So the lightest part of the letters is going to be on the right, so I don't put any shading there. I'm going to put the medium amount of shading coming down from the top, and then the darkest or even the left side, so the top and the left side, and then the darkest portion of the shading will be coming from the bottom. And so I use that rule to apply it to all the letters. I will say it did take a few tries with this to see what works out. It's not like I just sit down and I say, okay, light, medium, dark, left side, right side, bottom, and then I just go. I work it out with a few different times to make sure it looks right, and kind of see what level of medium or dark shading that I want to use. I also ask myself, for that lightest shading, do I want to keep it light or just white, no shading at all, or do I want to put something in there, even lightly? And what I decided for my drawing is that I want the edges to be very crisp and clear. If I wanted them to be more subtle, I would put in tones, like I would shade the areas a bit closer, like the light and the medium and the dark would be much more closer together looks wise, which you can do for your own drawing. But for myself, I wanted to keep them very separate. I wanted it to look very dimensional and very contrasting. And so that's why like the lightest shade is left with just the paper, it's just left white. And then the darkest shade, the darkest shade, I'm just getting in the initial shading done, but the darkest shade I'm going to be taking my 4B pencil in and shading that even darker than what I'm doing here. So for this G, I really want to talk about this a little bit. It's very difficult. This is probably one of the most difficult letters to draw for this series because what do you do with all those edges? And again, this was just trial and error to see what works. Also, kind of following some of the rules that I had laid out for the rest of the letters. And so in terms of that faceting, wherever the edges met, it always kind of met in kind of a triangle shape. It wasn't just finished off with a straight line. And so I tried to keep that same kind of logic and apply it to the letter G. And I think it worked out. I still, I think there are a lot of different solutions for how I could have drawn this. And when you do your drawings, definitely do the same thing. Draw it out a bunch of different ways. See what you like the best. See what works the best for whatever you're applying this to. Like maybe you're not drawing this. Like maybe you're painting it. Maybe you're using markers. Totally different medium. And so maybe like all those facets, maybe all the detail doesn't work as well, or maybe you need even more detail. But that's what just doing a little practice before you start on your main piece will do for you. And plus you can find really interesting creative solutions that maybe you hadn't thought of like in your mind, like you had to put it down on paper to discover those, which is another great thing about art, which is another great thing I love about drawing. Why I love this channel to be a drawing channel is because it's so like you can just put down a million ideas. You can put it on scrap paper, you can grab a number 2 pencil. Nothing is like wasted, nothing is lost. Like it's very affordable to draw and get your ideas out very, very quickly. So I'm finishing up this H, and as you can see, I have a little bit of tissue paper under my hand. And if you're left-handed, I think if you're right-handed, this might be helpful for you too, but really, this is a left-hander tip where when you're drawing, if you're a left-hander, you're basically, as you go along, if you draw left to right instead of right to left, you're smearing everything as you're drawing it. So you draw it and it's smearing across the page. And so since I'm using such dark shading, I had to grab that and put it under my hand, and it's really helpful. And I will say this, like change it out, like don't just use the same piece. Like if you change it out with a couple pieces, it keeps your drawing clean and neat. And even in this video, you'll see like at one point I have to stop like after this F and just erase everything a little bit like around there because it had gotten like a little bit, the lead had gotten like smeared a little bit, or the lead, like the little crumbs, I guess you could call them crumbs of lead, had shifted down the drawing. And so I wanted to have that clean, crisp look. And if your effect is to have it a little dirtier and grimier looking, that's actually a really effective tip, and it's super easy, but I wanted my piece to be really clean and sharp looking. So as I said before, I'm going in with my 4B pencil and I'm just going over everything and darkening up the areas, darkening up those lines. I want a lot of contrast. I want this to look very dimensional. And this was a very easy way to do it. Like you could get a lot of other shades and tones and make this look even more realistic looking. But this is a fairly basic solution with, I feel like, a lot of impact pretty immediately. And I'm going through here, and as you can see, when I shade this G, when it comes to round things and following this rule that I kind of created for myself, that like the lightest part is on the right side, the light's coming in from the right, so I don't shade that top part of the G, I don't shade it all the way to the edge because I want some of that light coming through, because based on how I set it up, some of the light still would be coming through. It wouldn't just be solid at the edge. And I'm going through here and I've got the H, and I'm finishing this piece up. This series is so much fun to do. I've been so excited to get this started. I'm so excited to do all the letters because I just feel like it's very different. It's very high impact, and anything involving lettering, I love typography, and so I love doing these videos. Like it's probably one of my favorite things to draw, because they're always really quick and easy. I really appreciate you watching my channel. Definitely subscribe. I would love to hear from you in the comments section. Let me know what you'd like to see me draw. Thank you so much for watching. This is Sketch Dirt, and I'm Marla. Bye!